Celtics Nation, what a roller coaster this matchup turned into. And anyone who watched it from start to finish probably felt like they were witnessing two completely different versions of the same team. Boston came in needing energy, needing assertiveness, needing that punch that sets the tone early, and they delivered that spark in the second quarter like a storm hitting full force. It was the kind of stretch where every loose ball belonged to Boston. Every passing lane tightened up, and every defensive rotation felt sharp and connected. The team flew around the floor with an urgency that reminded everyone of what this roster looks like at its highest level. They piled up steals, and unlike so many nights this season, they actually turned those steals into fast break points, easy buckets, and momentum that snowballed into something massive. That 23-point lead in the first half did not happen by accident. It came from defensive commitment and smart offensive choices. When Boston controls the pace like that, the scoreboard becomes a reflection of discipline rather than luck. It is wild to think about how dominant that first half looked. Dropping 80 points in one half is something rare even for the Celtics' long history, but they made it happen. It felt like everything clicked at once. Ball movement, spacing, pressure on the rim, and a confidence that spread through every player touching the ball. The second quarter itself was downright absurd, almost unreal, producing an avalanche of buckets that had the crowd buzzing and left Orlando completely overwhelmed. At that point, it looked like Boston had shattered the game wide open, as if the rest of the night would simply be about managing the lead and getting out healthy. But then came the other version of the Celtics, the one fans are desperate to see disappear. The third quarter gave subtle hints. Suddenly Orlando, a team missing multiple starters and relying heavily on players trying to prove themselves, could not miss. Shooters who had struggled all season found rhythm, and unfamiliar names started hitting everything. It was a strange shift, the kind that makes coaches restless because it is not about talent. It is about focus. Noah Penda, who came in fearless and shockingly productive, absolutely torched Boston during that stretch. Perfect shooting, offensive rebounds, energy plays, the Celtics simply did not match his intensity. It was the start of a troubling pattern. Then the fourth quarter arrived, and it turned into the Jet Howard show with Jace Richardson running alongside him. Suddenly, two young guys, both hungry for opportunity, were carving up the Celtics like seasoned veterans. Howard attacked from everywhere, driving, hitting threes, getting to the line, making plays off the dribble. Richardson matched him with strong finishes and shot-making that Boston never managed to cut off. Those two alone nearly flipped the entire game. 40 points in a quarter from a group, mostly made up of bench players, is the exact kind of thing that has haunted Boston all season long. It speaks to a defensive drop-off that appears anytime the team feels safe with a lead. And that mentality, that illusion of control, is exactly what allows opponents to storm back. Jaylen Brown himself said afterward that certain possessions lose their structure when the team is up comfortably. Some guys start hunting their own offense, drifting from the plan that built the lead in the first place. It is understandable for players fighting for minutes to want to make their mark, but these lapses create the cracks opponents squeeze into. Boston's margin for error right now is tiny. When they commit to the system, they look unstoppable. When they drift even a little, the whole thing becomes unstable. That is why the team keeps giving up 40-point quarters. Not because the talent is lacking, but because defensive principles break down the moment anyone relaxes. It got so bad that what looked like a blowout became a nail-biter. The Magic chopped the lead all the way down to 6, and suddenly every possession felt like a test of composure. They shot over 50% in the second half, and over 55% from long range during that window. Yet the one thing Boston did well was avoid the unnecessary fouls that had plagued them earlier in the game. Still, the lack of contact sometimes looked like a lack of resistance rather than discipline. At certain moments, it felt like Orlando was driving in for layups without even feeling a body between them and the rim. And this is where Jaylen Brown stepped up. When everything was slipping, when Orlando's confidence kept growing, Jaylen delivered the kind of closing performance that separates star players from everyone else. He scored 12 straight points, carrying the entire offense through a stretch where nobody else could fully settle things down. The numbers he is putting up this season are not just impressive, they are all-league material. Game after game, he becomes the stabilizer when everything around him becomes chaotic, and that trend continued here. Without him, this team would not have held on as the Magic threatened to steal the night with a group of reserves playing out of their minds. Derek White chipped in when needed, and Anthony Simons played with a spark that Boston desperately needs from its second unit. Simons has nights with a moment he sees the ball drop once. He becomes an unstoppable burst of scoring. That was the version of him that showed up in this game. Decisive, confident, attacking without hesitation. He nailed tough shots, fought on the glass, and played with the kind of conviction that Boston hopes becomes his norm instead of occasional flashes. Minot also delivered major minutes earlier in the game, thriving both as a cutter and as a presence around the rim when Boston's offense hummed. But the rotation choices became a storyline too, with the matchup shifting and Orlando turning to smaller, quicker lineups. Boston avoided using Luka Garza because this tempo simply did not suit his style. Instead, unconventional lineups featuring Minot or even Jordan Walsh at center took the floor. It created chaos, and neither team had interior protection, which explains the endless layups on both sides. Chris Boucher got minutes, but they were rough, and Boston kept searching for combinations that could slow the bleeding. And that is the challenge with this team. Nothing is fixed. Every night requires adjustments, and every player has to be ready for roles that might change quarter to quarter. Some nights the matchups demand physicality, others require speed, and sometimes the team has to experiment in real time just to survive a run. That pattern led directly into the lessons this team absolutely must absorb. Lessons that apply to Jalen, to Derek, to Peyton Pritchard, to every player fighting for consistency and identity as the season moves forward. Celtics Nation, if you thought the first half of this story was wild, buckle up because the second part gets even more chaotic, even more revealing, and honestly, it exposes the exact identity crisis this team is wrestling with right now. And look, we all love this team. We all know what they're capable of when everything clicks, but nights like this remind us just how thin the line is between dominance and disaster. They can go from looking like a well-oiled championship machine to suddenly forgetting how to defend, how to rotate, how to stick to the game plan, and all within a span of minutes. That's why this win, as messy as it was, ends up telling a much bigger story about where this roster is mentally, physically, and emotionally at this point in the season. Because the truth is, when the Celtics hit that second quarter explosion, when they were flying around, forcing steals, turning defense into instant offense, and stacking up points like it was NBA 2K on rookie difficulty, you couldn't help but think, okay, this is who they really are. A team that can suffocate anyone defensively, push the pace, get easy buckets, and overwhelm opponents before halftime. But then the fourth quarter happens, and suddenly you're sitting there staring at the screen like, how is this even the same team? The defensive intensity evaporates, the rotations get sloppy, the communication breaks down, and guys start freelancing like it's a pickup game at the local Y. And that inconsistency is exactly why the coaching staff keeps hammering on discipline, on trust, on sticking to the plan for all 48 minutes. And listen, Jaylen Brown said it perfectly after the game. Once some players feel like the game is in hand, they start drifting away from the structure. They start hunting their own shots, drifting into isolation mode, maybe trying to show something for their own confidence or even their minutes battle. And that's what creates that snowball of mistakes. Suddenly, Orlando's bench guys, players who normally wouldn't even sniff a moment like this, start gaining confidence. Next thing you know, Jet Howard is coming down the floor like a seasoned vet. Noah Pinda is playing like he's in a contract year. Jace Richardson is knocking down shots like he's been doing it for a decade. And you're just sitting there watching the lead shrink and thinking, this could get real ugly real fast. But that's where Jaylen Brown flipped the switch. That's where he showed exactly why he's playing at an All-NBA level this season. Every time the lead felt like it was one possession away from completely collapsing, Jaylen took command. He didn't panic, didn't force the wrong kind of shots, didn't drift away from what was working. He attacked, he created, he finished, he made the reads the game demanded. Those 12 straight points he scored in the fourth weren't just big. They were absolutely necessary. That was veteran leadership on full display. That was a star stepping up in the exact moments this team has historically struggled to find stability. And while Jalen was carrying the offense, you also started to see flashes of what this team needs around him. Anthony Simons looked like a microwave scorer again, the kind of guy who only needs one shot to flip the momentum of an entire quarter. Josh Minott kept making himself available in that dunker spot, slipping behind defenders, giving Jalen a reliable pressure outlet. And those little moments matter, because this team desperately needs secondary options to step up when the offense gets predictable or when Jalen is drawing extra bodies. You can feel that surge happening in real time. Who's going to be the consistent third punch? Who's going to stabilize the bench? Who's going to bring energy when the starters need a breather? And then, on the other side of all that, you have the lineup chaos. Joe Mazzulla isn't joking when he says there are no set rotations. One guy gets hurt, another one gets into foul trouble, and suddenly the matchups change. The pace changes, the whole flow shifts. Luka Garza didn't see a second of action. Not because of performance, not because he's being frozen out, but because this matchup would have turned him into a traffic cone against Orlando's small ball speed lineup. Chris Boucher got a shot, but even then he struggled to stay in front of anyone, and you could tell the coaching staff was trying to survive those minutes more than anything else. And that's what forced the Celtics into those bizarre, small ball lineups with Minott or Walsh essentially playing the five. It wasn't part of the plan, it wasn't something they walked into the arena expecting, but it was the only thing that made sense in the moment. And if this Celtics team truly wants to become a championship team, not just talented, not just dangerous, but reliable, these are exactly the kinds of uncomfortable wins they need to survive. Because when they get to the postseason, there won't be any games where they can relax after building a lead. There won't be any moments where the opponent lets up. Every weakness gets exposed. Every mental lapse gets punished. So if there's a silver lining to blowing a 26-point lead in a random regular season game, it's that it forces this team to confront their habits right now, not later when the stakes are higher. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers are swirling through the NBA world as one of the league's most dominant big men appears to be making a shocking move. Sources close to the matter suggest that the marquee center who has long anchored the paint for the Philadelphia 76ers is now turning his back on the city of brotherly love and embracing the green and white of the Boston Celtics. Fans and analysts alike are struggling to make sense of what could be one of the most seismic shifts of the season. Philadelphia supporters, who have grown accustomed to seeing their star dominate the boards and terrorize opponents in the post, are reportedly stunned. The move, if confirmed, would not only deprive the Sixers of a cornerstone presence, but also instantly transform the Celtics' frontcourt into one of the most formidable in the league. Rumors suggest that discussions have been intense behind closed doors, with Boston reportedly offering a package that the Sixers found hard to ignore. Details remain murky, but sources indicate that money, championship ambitions, and the promise of a new challenge all played a role in swaying the elite big man. Across social media, reactions are pouring in. Celtics fans are giddy at the prospect of adding such a high-caliber player to a roster already brimming with talent, while 76ers faithful are left in disbelief, flooding forums with messages of frustration and confusion. Analysts are already speculating how this could shift the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. The thought of a dominant interior force patrolling the paint alongside Boston's already versatile squad has many experts reevaluating playoff projections. The NBA grapevine is buzzing with potential scenarios. Could this be the start of a new dynasty in Boston, or a gamble that may backfire? One thing is clear. The mere rumor of this move has ignited heated debate across every corner of the basketball world. Whether it's a calculated strategic maneuver or a player seeking a fresh chapter, the implications are enormous, and the basketball universe is holding its breath. With tensions high and speculation at an all-time peak, fans are left to wonder if the rumor is merely that. or if the Celtics are on the verge of pulling off a blockbuster coup that could echo for years to come. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.